Hello there. It's going to be a short stream today, mostly just because I've got stuff to do, and I've got a few errands to run, but also because I wanted to finish out the disciplines that I was talking about in the Black Hand playing the Sabbat, specifically the stuff in the back of the book and the Chained Heart addendum. I wanted that to kind of round everything out. And then after I was done with that, basically, I figured I could move forward with kind of some other items in the book. I haven't decided what sections I'm going to tackle next. If anyone has any suggestions, feel free to let me know what you'd like me to go over in the book next. And if not, then maybe I'll talk about some of the adventures and stuff. And progress on other WAD related stuff. And of course, I'll talk about non-WAD stuff as well. I'm changing my setup around here a little bit. I don't have like a producer or anything like that. I watch the VODs to see what the sound quality is like. So I'm trying to, manage my microphone and other audio visual stuff. So if anything is not coming out clearly or anything like that, then just let me know. I'm trying my best to make sure that the audio quality is good, that there's not a lot of background noise or snaps, crackles, pops, that kind of thing, and that I enunciate clearly when I can. Um, Beyond that, some good news here and there, plugging away on various topics and new projects. Just working on an adventure for another IP, actually. So I'm working on a few adventures at the same time, which is nice. Nothing World of Darkness related news wise, other than what I mentioned before, which is the credit for the Sabbat material that was used in the official Gehenna War book. That was all taken from the Black Hand playing the Sabbat. That's like the Moon's Army stuff. Obviously, the Seraphim, Zhangbei Moon, comes directly from the Black Hand playing the Sabbat, and all that kind of related material. Um, the like Gortrix, Salubri, Tremere, like Power Triangle that Seraphim is involved in, and all that kind of generated the backstory of Moon's Army and the rest. So that's all going to be credited in the Gehenna War book. I actually spoke to, before I'd only been talking to people at like Paradox and White Wolf, but I actually spoke to people at Renegade the other day to kind of like clarify exactly what the credit would look like and everything like that. So, I don't think we'll be getting any inline credit like C page, XX and the Black Hand playing the Sabbat, which, it is what it is. But we will be getting, full author credits in the, full credits for the authors in the credit section of the book, which is great. So the book will be, credited in full for the addition of the Zhangbei Moon character into the official canon, which is, fantastic. That's great. I think that is, good. Crediting people for the work they do, especially artists and writers, I think is kind of, what should be done. And it's, proper. I think, obviously you can't credit everybody who ever wrote everything. That would make the credits pages kind of a mess. Even, Mark Reinhagen only gets kind of a brief notice in the beginning of these things. Like, not every book you have to should you be crediting every author who worked on every other book that book takes material from. Obviously, that makes complete sense up to a point, but obviously this material was not written for the Gehenna War book. It was not written for official products in general. Obviously, we wrote this book for the community. We were happy with the structure as far as the payment was for the community plan. And obviously we, weren't compensated for any work to appear in the Gehenna workbook, obviously. So, as far as like a kind of compromise for what we should get, I think this was really kind of the what should have been done. So it's great that it happened. It took a little longer than I thought it would. I honestly thought you know uh, either there would be just a no, sorry, the book's out or something like that. Um, or it would be just a quick fix, like, oh, okay, of course, like we'll do the thing. So it took a bit longer than I thought. I kind of blame just the fact that everything's very corporate nowadays for that. When it comes down to it, I don't think that's any one person's particular fault, as far as I know. So it is what it is. We're getting the credit, so that's good. As I've spoken of before, and the only new tidbit I can add to that really is that I spoke to Renegade and saw the credit that they proposed, and it's saw the credit that's going to be used in the book, I should say, and that we agreed upon, and it looks good to me. So I'm excited to see that appear in the PDFs, and I was told that if there's ever additional printings of the book, obviously that credit would be in the physical books going forward. So that's great. So beyond that, as I said, I wanted to kind of keep it short today. I wanted to basically go over the disciplines that are not in the discipline section, and that's not because I don't know how to put a book together. I promise. It's because after we hit platinum in the Storyteller's Vault, I forget how many sales that is. That's like, I don't know, 1,000 or 2,000. I have no idea. 1,000, I think. I don't know. It's way beyond that now. I think the next benchmark is unlikely to happen anytime soon. Really only official products ever hit that. I still think we're the best-selling community content only book in the vault for Vampire. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. At least of the non-free stuff. So I don't know if we'll ever reach the higher levels beyond platinum, but we were very excited to hit platinum. We didn't think it would happen so quickly. So thank you very much to everyone who bought the book and seemed so excited by it. So once it hit platinum, what we did is we actually added a section to the book, for free for people who already owned it, and obviously we didn't increase the price. So we added a section to the book called the Chained Heart Edition. We changed the Chained Heart addendum. We changed the cover of the book, and in a sense, we kind of re-released the book. Though obviously we didn't, charge people again for anything. And it had a bunch of new stuff in here, mostly having to do with just new rules here, there, and before. And we actually added. We'd actually added stuff onto the book before. We added some lore sheets for Valentine's Day at kind of the end of the lore sheet section. They were very kind of, Path of Blood focused and Path of Night focused. But this section, once we did that, hey there, nice to see you. So once we did that, once we added this section, we kind of considered the book like finished after that. And it's not a big section. It's just some additional rules that we had thought of as like options that were being used for an adventure. And so we kind of modified that concept to be more for general use, because in the adventure it's rather specific. Oh, good. I'm glad that you like it. In the actual adventure, they're a bit different because they're kind of adventure focused. So as the heat goes up, they're like specific encounters that happened. So for this, we wanted something more generalized and more simple. Like what appears in the adventure is actually a little more complex. So this is a kind of simplified and generalized. And I feel it's fantastic. And yes, I like the atrocities a lot. Yet again, I think projects. I'm glad you used them both in your chronicle. I think projects is just a fantastic concept that was put into V5. It's really, I'd say something that was kind of missing from Vampire the Masquerade, these kind of long view plots for the immortals, as it were. And I understand why, because Vampire the Masquerade, as it was originally intended, was obviously, very street level, and obviously V5 was supposed to be very street level. But that's not the only style of play. So having this kind of, well, vampires can have long-term plans and they manipulate things and so on kind of system was great. I mean, I personally think projects is maybe a little too complicated. That's why we came up with plots as kind of an optional simplified version of that. Basically me simplifying systems, I guess is kind of a thing of mine. Even with the Vampire Player's Guide, I basically, part of my task was simplifying systems, like the 2-page character creation system, the kind of instant vampire system where you just pull cards from a tarot deck, so on and so forth. Just there are a few examples actually in there where basically I took systems that were maybe a little overcomplicated. The one-roll memoriam system, that kind of stuff, that's also in the Vampire's Player's Guide. Actually, I wrote a lot for Memoriam for the Vampire's Player's Guide, but there was just too much. Like, it couldn't all fit in there. So very little of the Memoriam rules I wrote for the Vampire's Player's Guide made it in there, which is kind of funny because the same thing happened with me with Requiem. I wrote very detailed rules for basically like Torpor and like adventuring during Torpor, because Requiem kind of had kind of an interesting take on Torpor. As like how you experience Torpor. That was very Mummy-esque, and so I expanded on that as Torpor as like a potential, kind of style of play almost that like a Torpored vampire would have, an ability to act within the Chronicle in a way. But that didn't make it in also for room considerations into mythologies, actually, which actually I think the first book I ever wrote with Ken Hite, and I think Robin Laws wrote in that book too. So in any case, atrocities obviously very useful, and it kind of messes with these like big nasty things the Sabbat do. Like, everyone's scared of the Sabbat, but why? And I think atrocities kind of help answer that question and help players, if they want, really delve into the nastier, bigger stuff the Sabbat is capable of, that thematically would not maybe make sense in other games. And kind of gives a framework for the storyteller. Obviously these rules are not overcomplicated. They can be as impactful or not impactful as one. Hopefully they're impactful. They're meant to be. But I didn't really come here to talk about them. I can. But basically what we also did is when we released the kind of clan-specific supplements, which had kind of reimaginings of Lasombra, Zemese, and Ravnos, we also started adding those supplements to this book, because those supplements obviously are free or pay what you want. So I didn't really want kind of our core audience to miss out on them, just because maybe they're not keeping up to date on like what we're releasing or anything like that, which is possible. I use like MailChimp and other things to kind of get the emails out to people who have like subscribed. And when we do sales, obviously we ask people to subscribe. But it's not a huge mailing list, and that's fine. I understand. I'm not a big fan of like my email. My email is insane. Like I think I have 100,000 unread emails from like all kinds of stuff. I mean, it is what it is. Oh, thanks for following, Safia. I appreciate it. Hey there. Welcome to the chat. It's gonna be a short one probably today, but thanks for stopping by no matter what. And feel free to ask any questions if you have them. So we've gone through the disciplines in the 2 previous streams. So this time I wanted to look at what we did with the disciplines in the back of the book, basically, because basically we don't like pull up the floorboards. We don't strip everything down to first thoughts. But we definitely tweak things a bit, especially with the Zemese, I would say, more than the La Sombra when it comes to the disciplines. Well, maybe that's not true. I guess there's technically a more core change to the La Sombra than to the Zemese. But I think it's all for the best. And all this stuff is optional. If you don't like it, if you're not interested in it, if your ST says, no, that's not going to hurt my feelings. I hope it doesn't hurt yours. If you think it's cool, maybe it can be of some use to you in your games, but more importantly, if it generates a story idea. So obviously, we kind of reimagined the La Sombra a little bit here. The most glaring change is stripping away Oblivion and replacing it with Obfuscate. And then basically Obtenebration becomes an amalgam. I've said this a million times before. Obviously, number one Oblivion hater here, whatever. Call me what you will. My problems with Oblivion run deep. I don't blame you if you like it. That's great. Play your game. I'm not here to judge your fun. If you love Oblivion, then that's fantastic. I don't really oppose my players using Oblivion in my games. I would prefer they use this version of La Sombra, but if they really love Oblivion or Oblivion is what they want, then I say go for it. Actually, in the game I'm running right now, there is a Nosferatu who's using some of these amalgams. Because obviously Obfuscate, some of them are like Obfuscate Potence centric. And I think I have Giovanni, because it's set in 1999, so I have a Giovanni, so they kind of are using a tweaked version of Hakata. But instead of Oblivion, they're getting like blood sorcery and some necromancy-focused stuff, which is something I've talked about in the past, the kind of Giovanni, redone Giovanni I have. But I'm not really sure if I want to talk about that on stream quite yet, because it's in a, rough state, not really in a, meant for publication state. Yeah, I've played La Sombra a few times. They're fun. I would recommend it. Yeah, it's Oblivion. In a sense, Oblivion is interesting because I would agree with that it has some lore. It kind of, in a sense, reinforces some lore ideas that weren't never really previously explored in previous editions. So it kind of confirms some stuff almost. I'd say if you have a chance to play La Sombra or you're interested, they can be a lot of fun. The main issue I've always had with La Sombra in previous editions, and somewhat in this edition, is they don't really have like a focus, like what they're about. Their role in the game was always kind of like thematically opposed to what would come naturally to them. In my estimation, I think they're cooler if they're like puppet masters. They rule things from the shadows. They're manipulators. Like they're ruthless and cruel, but they don't like the spotlight. They like to stay in the shadows. They like to be the power behind the throne. And that kind of like nefarious manipulator. Like usually I think of them as the puppeteers or the puppet masters. So the fact that they were kind of like the front face rulers of the Sabbat never really sat too well with me on some level, because it seemed to go against what they were about. Like the Ventrue being kind of like a face clan always made some sense, just not because of just their power set, but because of their thematic role. While La Sombra, I think if you imagine them as like puppet masters, shadow manipulators, like that kind of thing, it makes for an interesting thematic element for them. In previous editions, they never really got there. Originally, they were just kind of like these like brazen bullies that dominated everything around them and like ruled the Sabbat. Because like they were the biggest clan in the Sabbat and basically had a just lust for power. Then they did like a whole pirate thing with them. Like La Sombra Pirates was like a thing. Still kind of is, I guess. And there was some interesting writing around that. La Sombra pirate stuff, as crazy as that might sound, if this is the first you're hearing of it. But there is actually some cool conceptual stuff that was done with the La Sombra kind of pirate stuff. And like the sea being kind of the only material, physical manifestation of the abyss. which was kind of like their mystical, esoteric through point. So the sea, in a sense, kind of like calling to them, like the depths of the sea. Kind of abyssal in the kind of like, demonic sense, or even like in the Gnostic sense, like some deep gulf within your mind or psyche, and then abyssal within the sense of like a trench within the sea, like abyssal layers of the depths where only blind fish exist. So that's kind of cool. Like that merging of things was kind of cool once they got there. And then of course abyss mysticism, and all that, brought that esoteric flavor more to the front of Lasombra. But yeah, the Puppet Master stuff I think is very cool. Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, there you go. That's the kind of stuff you want to hear, right? Like a Gulf Arab seafaring vampires. Like I don't think a lot of people know that within the like Persian/Arabian Gulf, like the Emirates and a lot of those other places were kind of like, I don't want to say pirates, though that definitely was true, but there was definitely they were kind of like smuggling hubs. And so their seafaring tradition is kind of pretty ancient. Obviously, a lot of my family's from North Africa, and the Barbary Coast pirates and all that. Like, I was born in Algiers, so that kind of like Mediterranean, sea Lasombra is kind of cool. Well, yeah, there you go. Season 2 of Dubai by Night, Seafaring Pirates. Yeah, if you're gonna have seafaring vampires, then Lasombra fit into that very well. Like, not only is their power set kind of good for being out in the ocean for various reasons. Like, it's a lot easier to board a ship when you can jump through shadows and the rest, even in the modern era. But just thematically, their connection with the sea, both as I said, in a kind of metaphysical sense, but also in a historic sense, that their roots, have now been kind of tied up with seafaring stuff. And of course, Lasombra, the Ashira, the kind of quasi-Islamic, North African, kind of like Arab flavored vampire sect that we don't hear a lot about. Though, I do my best to throw stuff in there. Like in the Vampires Player's Guide, I talked about them as much as I was allowed to for the official V5 book. And, of course, in the Sabbat book here, the Black Hand Playing the Sabbat, we talk about them. And in the Ivory Tower book we're working on, we're going to talk about them a bit more. But even the Ashira, obviously, by lore, were founded by Lasombra. So I think it was a 4th-generation Lasombra who actually founds the Ashira. He, never joins the Sabbat, or neither does his lineage. So the Lasombra, in a sense, they've always had a place outside the Sabbat, if you like delve into the lore. When I wrote on Cairo by Night back in the day, for, I don't know what that was. Was that Revised Vampire? Maybe. Maybe it was 2nd edition. Maybe it was the end of 2nd edition, the beginning of Revised. We definitely added Ashira Lasombra in there. I think they were pretty interesting. My favorite face of the Lasombra are self-destructed vamps with image identity issues, easy to layer, Ventrue, Bruach comparisons, contrasts them, matching with the Sabbat by how much they're willing to destroy themselves to get what they want. Yeah, I mean, I get that in a sense. Like, I really like playing with the kind of forgotten face stuff. And the kind of forgotten identity stuff. Definitely Lasombra can suffer from that. Obviously because of their clan weakness, and Zemese as well, because flash crafting, you could easily, not remember your original face if you've changed it so often. We had to hope the V5 book is not seen by any authority figures in Emirates to avoid it being an issue. Oh, well, to be fair, the V5 core book, is pretty, I don't think there's anything in there that I can think of off the top of my head that the Emirates would have an issue with. I don't think. Maybe. I think there's like some drug use in there and like some light sexual content. But, you never know. And in my experience, usually the English stuff can get sneaked in. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've been to the Emirates a few times and Dubai, um, Sharjah, and Oman. I've been to Oman as well, and I've actually never been to Saudi, but I've been to Oman, the Emirates, Yemen. Um, so I'm pretty familiar with the Gulf, and yeah, and the Emirates is kind of an interesting place because you like kind of like you go into the hotels or whatnot, and like things can get pretty wild in there at night. You're surrounded by foreigners who are working in the Emirates, but then out and about, you really have to be on your best behavior because they're pretty strict there. They run a, I guess you could say they run a very tight ship in the Emirates, at least in Dubai. Maybe it's more low key other places. Um, yeah, Saudi, from my understanding, the foreigners are kind of like in their compounds, and that's about it. You don't really see them outside the compounds. I didn't really see very many foreigners in Oman either, except on the hiking trails when I went hiking in like the wadis and the stuff. There, I saw plenty of white people scrambling on rocks. Yeah, Saudi. Well, I don't know if there is there still zero alcohol in Saudi, because technically Yemen was also zero alcohol, but that wasn't actually the case. So it was there, and not like hard to find. Though actually, when we left Oman to enter the Emirates, I think they found like some alcohol in my friend's car or something, and he got like chewed out for like an hour or something like that. So uh, how it's how they execute on the laws, I think is can change on what they like. Yeah. Um, right. Exactly. Yeah. If you're a foreigner, you can buy the alcohol and keep it in your house, and it has to be like a limited amount. So you can't just like open a bar up in your house, which I'm sure is what people would do. From my understanding, Yemen, at least when I was there, this was a long time ago, 2008, 2009, around there. When I was in Yemen, that was also the case. The expats could keep like a limited amount in their house. But there are also kind of foreigner compounds, and there were some places in those foreigner compounds that were grandfathered in. There was actually in Yemen, in Sana'a, there was a place called like the Russian Bar, which was basically run by like by like ex-Soviet like military people who just stayed in Yemen, after the Civil War, and they and they basically ran the bar, and it was only open to foreigners, and it was kind of in a compound area that where foreigners lived, and basically they could kind of just do whatever they wanted. I don't know what kind of agreement they had with the authorities. Um, I have no idea if that place is still open. Oh, in December? Okay, that's kind of crazy. Well, we've kind of gone a little off topic here, but I'm always very interested in things happening in the Gulf. Obviously, the degrees I hang behind me aren't for role playing games. They're for you know no, it's okay. Yeah, as I was saying, my degrees are literally for international security policy, international criminal justice, and my focus was on human rights, military expenditures, regional security in the Middle East, and the stuff, and counterintelligence in the Middle East. So I'm always interested to hear what's going on over there. I mean, especially nowadays, it's uh, always good to hear from someone on the ground, as it were. But just because I have limited time, we can pick this up some other time. Hopefully, you'll come back to the stream. I'm gonna jump into what I've got here. The two sections I've added: Crowned in Shadow and the New Flesh. I will add Insatiable Dreams, I promise, once I have some time to jump into the book's editor. But you can obviously just go get Insatiable Dreams. It's free or pay what you want on the Storyteller's Vault. So We changed the Lasombra a little bit. We messed around with their Bane. We kind of went back to their mirror thing. I had limited writing space here. I didn't want their Bane to be like a mile long. So I think I could have written it maybe a little better than I wrote it here. But I just want to kind of get the idea across. And of course, I wanted the Bane severity to actually have some weight to it and for it to be an interesting role-playing thing. Their compulsion is ruthless, which is very similar to kind of the Ventrue compulsion, actually, about like dominating others and kind of proving, you're in charge and you're cruel and you just don't care what other people think. And that's that, which is kind of a funny thing. It's almost petulant in a sense. And then, of course, I lay out Obtenebration, which is, like, as I've said before, it's an amalgam now, usually of Obfuscate and Dominate, but there are some Obfuscate Potence amalgams as well that also get the Obtenebration Kicker, which is down here. The Obtenebration Kicker that kind of classifies these amalgams as Obtenebration is you may choose to take a number of stains equal to the margin of failure on your rouse check instead of taking hunger. So, I didn't want to totally get rid of the idea that Obtenebration / Oblivion was kind of unnatural, that it like harms you on a spiritual level to use these powers to like touch the abyss, in a sense, that these aren't just like shadow powers, that they're not like just like with Lasombra, with Ravnos, in a sense. Well, I'm glad you're using them, Gord. That's great. I'm very happy to hear that. The more people use it, the happier I am. I also love to hear how it plays, because then that can get me thinking about if it's been implemented correctly. Because sometimes stuff makes mechanical sense, but then through play, you find where the creaks are. So I didn't want to get rid of that concept, and just like with the Ravnos, where we're like, okay, Chemistry isn't about like David Copperfield light shows, light illusions. It's about dreams and making dreams real. That seemed more supernatural and interesting for me. So for the Lasombra, obviously you don't want it to just be like shadows. You're making puppets, and then like casting shadows on the wall. You don't particularly want that. So there's something more to the shadows. You're kind of empowering the shadows. There's like something more to it, some other dimension almost, the like abyss, as it were. So I'm not a huge fan of that concept, but that is the Lasombra concept, and I wanted to be true to that. So I felt this allowed you to kind of touch upon that this is a corrupting power, an unnatural power, but didn't take away player agency and didn't like, as I won't belabor the point, and didn't just throw stains on you randomly like the current rule set for Oblivion. Could part of the other shadow corrupting power be Jinn? Yeah, I mean, I feel that in any setting or situation, you can bring like those cultural elements into the game. Definitely, I actually just wrote a whole Jinn group for Urban Shadows, actually. Which is a very WoD-esque game by Magpie that uses Powered by the Apocalypse system, so a more kind of narrative system. So I just wrote a city book for them called Algiers and Angels, which introduces the Angel playbook as a new playbook. It introduces Algiers as a setting for Urban Shadows, and the main conceit of that setting is basically these like wizards who are like wishmasters. And kind of like astrology prophecy seekers, who had like I don't want to say enslaved, but basically had used these Jinn, and then the Jinn is a whole other faction of these kind of, I don't want to say, they're not really chaotic, but their inner urge is to be free. And they have all the power to be as free as they want. So they're kind of free spirits. It's very hard to control them. So these wizards who were able to became very powerful. And then basically the conceit of the book is that these wizards and Jinn, during the Reconquista of Spain, when the Arabs, Muslims, Jews basically had to flee Spain during the Inquisition and the such. Well, before the Inquisition, technically. So they fled to Algeria, North Africa. Specifically, this school fled to Algiers, and they basically had to free the jinn to escape. So now they live in Algiers in this like kind of like very tenuous alliance that has existed for hundreds of years, because they basically have had to come to some agreement, because these jinn in a sense are the only reason the school survived, and then the jinn have to kind of get over the fact that and some of these jinn are immortal, obviously, so they were there. Have to kind of get over the fact that these wizards were like exploiting them for so long, and that's part of the tension of the story as things kind of come to the head. I think as like the kind of head of the wizard faction is like dies, everyone assumes killed, and then fingers start getting pointed and all that. So yeah, I mean, that is kind of cool. The idea that the shadows are jinn or in somehow connected to jinn could be pretty interesting, because that kind of gels with kind of like the Gnostic idea of, well, not really a Gnostic idea, but the idea of like these like elemental spirits or creatures beyond our keen, that animate things. And shadows are very like animated and kind of have like a mind of their own. So the idea that you're kind of like imparting the spirit of a jinn into a shadow so it walks around and stuff, that is actually pretty cool and interesting. And like La Sombra obviously already have a deep connection culturally with the region, not just in Spain but North Africa, and of course they're in the Ashira, as a founding clan of the Ashira. That could be pretty interesting. I'm sure that that could be a through line for the La Sombra. But going through the powers, these powers, I'd say with this one, like Dead Man's Hand, is basically just a potence power with kind of like a little kicker. It's a level 1 obfuscate power with a potence amalgam, and it is basically kind of a way to like poison mortals for others or kill them. Well, no, you kill them and you poison their blood afterward. Basically, you make their blood unfit for drinking, except for Iron Gullet. And you can basically beat up ghosts. So your unarmed attacks can grapple, damage animated shadows, ghosts, and wraiths for the rest of the scene. So that was kind of the main thing. The other stuff is fun and interesting, but I don't really think you need new powers to kill mortals, really. Level 1 or otherwise, mortals are pretty fragile in V5. Poisoning their blood is a fun effect, obviously. But the actual ability to, like, strangle a ghost or a wraith, or, like, wrestle a shadow, or, swat away an arm of the abyss, that kind of thing, I think is pretty fun and cool and interesting. And if you go on the more kind of necromancer tip with the La Sombra, which I think is a fine way to go. I don't think you have to reserve necromancy for Hakata / Giovanni. I think it's very fine and fun for other vampire clans to get in on the necromancy thing. I think it's fine if the Hakata / Giovanni are like the masters of it, and obviously will have communal resources way beyond any other clan, and just natural ability that's going to make just life easier for them when they like get into necromancy. But I think it's perfectly cool to have like a Brujah necromancer or a La Sombra necromancer or whatever, or a Nosferatu necromancer. And I think having these powers as an amalgam also helps with that. So these powers are mostly Obtenebration shadow focused. There's not a lot of necromancy, but I definitely wanted to keep it within the power that these are powers that have ghostly, wraithly aspects. Obviously, the Abyss in the World of Darkness is a very wraith-focused, very ghost, shadow-focused concept. It is basically like where souls go to get like churned up, ripped apart, and like kind of ground into nothing. In a sense, or so you hope. And obviously where specters, the corrupted remnants of a soul supposedly originate from. Arms of the Abyss, yet again an amalgam. It's a level 2 obfuscate with the dominate 1. Unlike Arms of the Ahriman, this is less about being just like a straight combat power. It's less about being a kind of overpowering combat power. I wanted it to be useful in combat, especially against mortals, but it is mostly a power about restraining and controlling the battlefield, as opposed to just like dominating the battlefield and being able to kind of like octopus punch everybody in the room all of a sudden. And I also wanted to get away from any kind of fine control for the tentacles. I wanted like flapping, flailing tentacles. I didn't want kind of like, microsurgery or, flipping light switches or whatnot. Like, I know the Arms of the Ahriman they're not really written that way, that they're supposed to be like, performing brain surgery. As a conflict pool, yeah, I mean, yet again, I go with simple where I can. I don't want to like overcomplicate things. In V5 combat, it's supposed to be very short and 3 rounds and blah blah blah. So anything that kind of I feel slows the combat down too much isn't great. Like if I can write a power without a contested roll, I will try to. I'll do my best not to. It lasts for the scene. And you can direct it to do what you want. Night Shroud, yet again, Obfuscate 2, Dominate 2, though. This is I thought this was kind of a fun power. It basically lets you hide corpses in your shadow. Yeah. I mean, Arms of the Ahriman, as written, actually, if you go through the trouble of reading the mechanics, is not terrible. It's actually pretty mechanically balanced, kind of, because you're splitting your pool, and it's doing superficial damage here and there. That's just not the way I've ever seen it run. I've seen it used in, I think, 3 different actual plays now, including one that I participated in. And it's always run as, the pools aren't split, and it's able to kind of do just incredible things. And if you do focus on one enemy, you're able to generate a pool that is just insane, especially when you're talking about, like, I think you can add, like, you can use, like, your potence to a certain level with it and all that. So, I mean, I don't want to, like, argue about specific powers. I didn't particularly write this to replace Arms of the Ahriman. I made it a lower level. Arms of the Ahriman, I believe, are level 3 Oblivion, if I remember correctly. So technically, you could have both. This just more narratively and thematically fit my concept of what these shadow tentacles should be doing. And I felt it was kind of simplified and wasn't going to get into these like kind of mechanical debates, as it were. For Night Shroud, it was basically about, you craft a funerary shroud out of your shadow in a sense, or you like put your shadow underneath the corpse and it sinks into the corpse. And then you can later regurgitate the corpse out of your shadow later. You can only keep one corpse in there. You can basically let the corpse get lost in your shadow. You're no longer making it regurgitatable, but that causes sustain. You can't carry vampires, other undead in there, so on and so forth. So just a kind of like fun little power. If you want to go for the more kind of necromancer angle. It's Wits plus Oblivion, with the power bonus from Blood Potency. But I could have swore Arms of the Ahriman allowed you to use potence abilities with it. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't mind the I don't mind hearing your thoughts on it for sure. I'm not I don't know every power off the top of my head, or read those books in depth. As I've said before, Cult of the Blood God, and those line of books like weren't actually even in the library of books that were given to me when writing officially for V5. Um, so yeah, the damage rating is half potent. So yeah, like +1 or +2. Um, so yeah, not too bad. But still pretty powerful. Yeah. Uh, I guess for for me, I just really wanted something that was quick and easy and didn't really have to kind of argue about the mechanics on some level. I felt that what I wanted is you throw up this wall of tentacles, it grabs people. If they're mortals, they can be ripped apart. If they're not mortals, then they can be restrained. Maybe you can pick up a car with them, that kind of thing. Yeah, now Night Shroud for just you can use it to dispose of corpses or carry a corpse around if you're into that for some reason. Um, Shroud of Shadows is kind of your classic. It's dark now power. Uh, it's described more of a miasma of shifting shadows, so it's not really it's not like technically just pure darkness. That's not really what it's about. It is more about choking out mortals and kind of making stuff difficult for mortals and making it easier for you and your compatriots to sneak around. But it is also kind of the kind of classic Lasombra power. I felt like level 3 was kind of a better for it. The lights are off power always caused a lot of panic in games, so I didn't want it to be like just a pure darkness shroud. So I felt making it more kind of like shifting shadows felt more interesting and less, I get not necessarily overpowered, but maybe more useful in general. Then finally, for the levels 4 and 5, Shadow Body. You turn yourself into a shadow, like a literal wall, like shadow on the wall kind of thing. And obviously that gives you some protections and immunities, limits your ability to do stuff and interact with things physically, but makes it very easy for you to sneak around, get into tight spaces, literally slide under the door, that kind of thing. I was thinking of this as kind of like a mist form, but with obviously a more thematic element to it that was good for Lasombra. And I felt level 4 was a good place for it, especially since it's an amalgam with a pretty high, this is Potence 3, with a pretty high prerequisite. As you can see, the physical obtenebration powers are Potence oriented, and the more mystical I control the shadows powers are dominate oriented. And that's a pretty high thing. The only kind of place where this breaks is when you get the Shadow Step, because that's the kind of capstone power. So I felt like Shadow Body was a good prereq for that. And obviously that means you're basically going to be rocking Obfuscate 5, Potence 3, just to have this. So that's a pretty hefty commitment. So Shadow Step, I want it to be very useful, obviously, because it's capstone power. You're giving up the ability to get some pretty good level 5 Obfuscate powers for this. So it's 2 rouse checks. It's good for 1 step. You can basically teleport from one shadow to another. You can also kidnap people and kind of drag them through the shadows. Or you can guide people through the shadows, all that. And regardless of their willingness, all vampires that travel through Shadow Step reemerge with 1 stain in addition to any other consequences. So that's kind of the yet again the touchstone that this is an unnatural power, and that in a sense you're not just playing with shadows, that there's some kind of connection to the abyssal realm within Wraith that you're using to kind of tunnel through reality here. So, when using Shadow Step, the vampire perceives herself as sinking into a shadowy realm of clinging darkness, and she must instinctively make her way to shifting portals of phantom light before being consumed by the cloying environment. Um, uh, so for people, so for you, it can feel like it lasts a very long time. But for outside observers in the real world, it's instantaneous. But in the shadow realm where you're traveling, it can actually feel like you're traveling for quite a bit. So you can try to drag unwilling victims, and you can take willing passengers. If you take vampires with you as willing passengers, they get stains. And then, of course, it also lets you take stains instead of hunger. So Arms of the Abyss being dominate does open it up to a lot more builds. I think that your Shadow Body and Shadow Step are very nice as well. A good 1-2 progression for the heights of vampiric power. Yeah, thank you. I had one player complain about it being Potence 3, but to be fair, I was like, well, then you would have like kind of started the game with it probably. And also like his build was Potence heavy anyway, so you didn't really have anything to complain about. But I understand why someone who maybe wanted to be more on the like mental tip, less about the physical prowess, might feel like, oh well, that kind of excludes me from the power. Yeah, no, well, I agree. The Shadow Tentacles are iconic, and that's one reason I kind of wanted them to be a lower level, and B, for their use to be kind of thematic and iconic as opposed to kind of brutish. So as I said, it's not really meant to replace Arms of Ahriman. It's more of a, well, this is the way I would have done it kind of situation. And also I wanted to kind of obviously get away from Oblivion as well. So if I want to get away from Oblivion, I have to compensate people for the fact that Oblivion isn't there for them. My one wish for the power is the ability to try and restrain, strangle an opponent with them. The flat difficulty is fast, but maybe feels a bit passive weak against a vampire opponent. Yeah, so yeah, my Arms of the Abyss, I guess, would be less useful against other vampires. I agree with that. It is very, unless they're weaker vampires, it is pretty useful against, it's very useful against mortals, obviously, and for like crowd control and controlling an environment. I will say in my game and playtesting, like weaker vampires fell prey to it pretty easily as well, because a player could get a pretty good dice roll on it. And being restrained, losing a turn when combat only lasts, 3 rounds, can be pretty useful. Weak mortals are a specific stat block. So weak mortals are very specifically the weak mortal stat block, which, are the majority of mortals usually. So it basically auto kills weak mortals. Other mortals, it would roll normally, though in general, in V5, mortals are, most people hand wave mortals unless they're hunters or very, heavily trained soldiers, military, maybe police, depending upon the style of game you're playing. A more adventure, action-oriented game, I could see mortals being more of a threat than they usually are. This also introduces plots. I won't really go into that because that's kind of off the topic of disciplines, which is what I want to keep this about. But basically, we came up with a simplified project system called plots. I believe it's, I'll have to reread the rule, but yeah, getting out of restraint. Oh, I meant if they're not able to get out of the restraining. So yeah, if they're not able to get out of the restraint, then they are basically stuck in one place. And usually people's, usually range attacks are often not as powerful as hand-to-hand attacks. So weak mortals instantly torn apart. can evade. Those restrained take a superficial health, cannot move away unless the arm is destroyed, or they take a minor action to escape with strength plus ball, or relevant test as determined by the blah, 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 blah. So basically, I just meant that if they failed the minor action to escape the tentacle, then they would basically be wasting their turn either, asking to see if either trying to leave the tentacle again by using their, action, or they would have to use something less useful than probably their main power set. Just because most characters I'd say most threats are hand-to-hand threats. Usually, the very few things that are range threats in general. And if something is a range threat, like if they have a flamethrower or something, then Arms of the Abyss probably isn't going to help you too much. Unless they're a weak mortal with a flamethrower, which, I guess could happen. So for Abyss Mysticism, it's basically, no, it's okay. I don't mind the questions. I want people to use and play with these powers, so understanding how they work is fine. It's fine by me. Obviously, I don't remember them down to the most minute details, so I'll have to reread them or look at it to see how it was built. But yeah, the basic concept was that the action would be wasted trying to get away from the tentacles. I didn't want it to be you had to waste your action. I wanted it to be like, okay, use a minor action to get away from it, and then if you don't get away with it, you still have the capability to do something, though it might not be your optimal choice. Then maybe you would waste your actual action to try to get out. So still pretty useful, and obviously weak mortals are toast. So plots are a simplified version of projects, which are in the V5 core book. They're just it's just like mostly less bookkeeping for the ST, and less rolls, and usually a shorter time span, but not necessarily. And in this case, if you take a minor action, my understanding is that you can get like a penalty to your main action if the minor action is significant enough. Like shoving aside a heavy door might imply a bigger penalty to your main action than like kicking a soccer ball away from you as you're walking up to someone, right? Like kicking the soccer ball would probably be okay. You can do that. It's a minor action. No penalty to your main action. While I shove aside this door, I have like Potence 3 and Strength 5, so it should be a minor action. And you'd be like, okay, it's pretty heavy though. It's a fire door, blah blah blah. Maybe it's not locked, but you take a -2 penalty to your main action. So yeah, so that's the basic concept. Is the minor action would inflict some kind of penalty to your main action, but if they wanted to use their main action to get away from the tentacles, I might allow that if it's a PC. Basically, I would have to think. I would have to think it over. I have to look over the action rule set in the V5 core book. So I guess in a sense it doesn't really like waste their action to get away from the tentacles. It just makes their action probably suboptimal. What kind of penalty it would inflict on you? I would, after if you use the minor action to get away from the tentacles, maybe a -2. I guess would be fair. I guess you could also ramp it up by the level of the obfuscate power, but I don't think I would do that personally. Or maybe the margin of success on the roll, that could be a possibility. Like there are definitely ways to play around with it to make it more interesting. But then we kind of get back into the original problem of like overly complicated power that is otherwise, pretty simple in its estimation. So those are things I'm happy for an ST to like rule on and adjudicate as makes the most sense for their table, as opposed to make a very kind of like rigid framework for like every kind of marginal situation. So I'm happy for people to use it at their table and make it the way they want, and make it as kind of uh, hampering as they want it to be, or just straightforward as they want it to be. I think that's perfectly fine. Um, so these abyss mysticism plots, um, yeah. Well, as I said, it's mostly for simplification of the power. So it's I felt that like more power should basically deal with mortals, especially weak mortals. Just get them out of the way. Um, no reason to kind of be doing rolls for those guys. And for vampires, no power should be able to kind of like shut them down completely, or as I said, octo punch or whatever, or like concentrated, just take people out. So I felt it was a good way of simplifying it without getting into like the weeds. Yeah. So at your table, you can adjudicate it the way you want. I didn't particularly feel like another paragraph or two was really going to add much beyond what was already in there. I wanted the power. It's iconic. Shadow tentacle arms, of course, but I didn't want it to be a page long. I want it to be simple and useful, and something that you wouldn't feel you had to hold in reserve for like the big fight, and that would just slow down combat. So all those things: speed of combat, ease of use, and like use and play. Those were higher considerations for me than kind of adjudicating all the marginalia of every possible situation that a wall of tentacles could produce. So with Abyss Mysticism, you basically use the obtenebration powers in a kind of... These aren't really rituals as we understand them. They're longer form projects, these plots, to create something using obtenebration that is going to have a longer lasting effect, and often is going to have a narrative or thematic effects. These aren't technically disciplines, so I'm not going to go through them in detail, but most of them are about making either kind of like shadow minions, like basically to get back to what Safia was saying about like Jinn, that would be, that would fit in very well here, because basically the idea is that the kind of baseline idea is that abyssal entities are being summoned to animate these shadows, whether that's specters or whatnot, or the remnants of a soul, are basically being empowered into these shadows to move around and serve you. So very easily they could be, in a different cultural milieu, they could be Jinn that are animating these shadows. I think that would be perfectly fine and an interesting spin or take on it, because how you would interact with the shadows would probably be a lot different if you conceived of them as Jinn, as if you conceive them as like spirits of the dead, as it were, or kind of abyssal entities, these kind of like never born things. So most of them are like that. Then there's one where you actually create a portal to the abyss, which yet again probably more a narrative dramatic element. And then of course there are those abyss mysticism plots, which are about kind of getting answers from the abyss, contacting these like primordial abyssal entities. I even call it Commune with the Neverborn as a tip to some of my favorite narrative stuff from Wraith, to like answer questions which are unanswerable in this realm. And lastly, something to kind of almost so Beyond the Abyssal Realm is kind of that. Sorry, I got the two confused. Beyond the Abyssal Realm is the one where you kind of like plumb for Abyssal Secrets. Commune with the Neverborn is where you basically connect yourself with like Abyssal elements to like kind of change yourself, to like imbue yourself with Abyssal power. And that's kind of the long and the short of it. I was kind of hoping to get through to the other stuff before I kind of ran out of time, but that's fine. I'm glad we had such a lively discussion. That's, really what I'd prefer in general. This is the cover of Crowned in Shadow. It kind of felt it fit pretty well for Lasombra, especially kind of like Sabbat focus. Yeah, thank you. It's actually a stock, well, not stock. It's a Creative Commons image, and I just modified it in GIMP. I don't use Photoshop. I try not to use any Adobe products if I can help it. I just modified it in GIMP as best as I could. Kind of lit up the heart and the shadow crown and all that, and added the flaming heart, and I think it turned out pretty well from what was just a like photo. Yeah, thanks for joining us or joining me. Thank you so much. I'm glad that people will get use out of it. This Crown in Shadow actually also has one of my favorite lore sheets in here, which is the Chaosid basically focused Lasombra lore sheet. So definitely I feel like it's worth taking a look at for that. I mean, it's free. You don't actually have to pay for it unless you want to. So definitely I think it's a cool book and worth checking out. And it's included in the Black Hand Playing the Sabbat. Yeah, like and subscribe. Thanks for hanging out. I'd like to do more Twitch streams in the future. I'm going to try and stream again this week. Might not be till Thursday, actually. I'll see you guys all later. And have a good afternoon. Praise Cain.